Right guys, we have even more leak cases and screen protectors for the iPad 10 that of course depict a complete redesign that I still do have my doubts over, but of course, let's delve into it. So yes, while there's still tons of confusion about the release, it seems accessory makers are in full swing releasing cases and screen protectors for this iPad. And while beginning with the screen protector, this does again show that this iPad could be a major refresh, basically looking near identical to the iPad Air 5. And once again, I do have my doubts over this because, like I've said in the past, these manufacturers have no idea about the product, they get no information about it from Apple themselves, it's all based on rough CADs, predictions, leaks, and so while I'm sure the dimensions of the product might be mostly accurate, I do have my doubts over the renders they show us. In fact, what My Smart Price showed us with an iPad Air chassis but the iPad 9 front makes the most sense, and I still think there's going to be a home button on this. And yes, I'm aware the screen protector has no cutouts for the home button on the front, but again, accessory manufacturers can make mistakes on products. A recent example of this would be the iPhone 14 Pro, because initially with the leaks we thought there would be two cutouts, and so many screen protectors were being produced with these two cutouts, but that was not the case. We got one software cutout for Dynamic Island, and so these screen protectors that of course these manufacturers were already producing in bulk were completely false. And so I still do have a feeling that's going to be the case with accessories for this iPad. Thankfully, this next leak, a clear case for this iPad, does seem to be pretty realistic. It shows us the flat sides, a cutout for the USB-C ports, and also a cutout for the camera that looks very similar to the iPad Air 5. Yeah, that all makes sense. And as I said, I think the dimensions of these cases are legit. It's just the renders they share with the case listings that are completely false. Although I do want to say there does seem to be a cutout at the top of the iPad for Touch ID that I don't think is going to be the case. I still think the home button's going to exist. And yes, I'm just going to temper my expectations with this iPad and not expect a major refresh. Since ultimately this adopting the iPad Air 5 design would of course cannibalize the iPad Air, since the M1 exclusive features are not good enough yet to justify the premium for the Air, so till we get more exclusive features, or maybe new display tech, I doubt we're gonna get any changes to the front of the budget iPad. And yeah, to be honest, I could care less about the bezels. I just want a panel that's laminated, and so if Apple can give us that, I would be happy with that, and I wouldn't care about the home button staying on the front. So yeah, that's basically everything from these new tidbits, but now let's delve into your comments. Seven Rogers says, Apple would not waste an iPad redesign on a press release, and that is a fair point. This will be a major refresh for the budget iPads, but then again, one could argue that everything we're seeing with this iPad has already debuted on other iPads years ago. So yeah, I could see Apple justifying a press release, and we have had major releases via press releases in the past. For example, AirPods Pro, AirPods Max, the 16-inch MacBook Pro, so yes, I could see this iPad following suit. And as I mentioned in the last video, maybe Apple's scared to announce the high price for this iPad, because yes, I'm sure there's going to be a price increase. So Jeffrey says, will this have a headphone jack? And to be honest, I doubt it. This is getting the same chassis as the higher end iPads, and those lost the jack years ago, so of course, the budget iPad following suit does make sense. And to be honest, many have adopted AirPods, and so I doubt we need a jack for these iPads. And yes, I know there are kids who use this, but ultimately Apple knows their stats, and I'm sure a wider range of their user base do have AirPods. So Deval says, price for the iPad 10, now I'm predicting this to be $399, so a $70 increase, and that is quite a massive increase, but I guess the redesign and the other upgrades we're going to see with this iPad can justify this. And at the end of the day, this is still much cheaper than the iPad Air 5, and so I don't think the price hike is going to be a major issue for this iPad. So Eldine says, I just want a larger entry-level iPad. I want a bigger screen but don't need the extra price of the Pro and of course the additional performance that comes with it. And I'm actually in the same boat because I do want to try out a 12.9-inch iPad. I've been a fan of the 11-inch size, but I do want to experiment with a bigger size. The thing is though, I can't justify the high price for it, and so yes, I would be very happy with, of course, a budget 12.9-inch iPad. And actually, sort of related to this, there have been murmurs about a 14-inch iPad Air in the works, And while the report does not make a ton of sense to me, if that does materialize, I could see myself getting it. Seven Rogers says Apple is going to start differentiating displays across each iPad model, for example double stack OLEDs for the iPad Air. Now this, I completely agree with. Until we see OLEDs or mini LED on the iPad Air, I don't see Apple giving us a full screen display on the budget iPad. Because imagine if a customer does walk into a store and sees the iPad Air's panels much brighter and has better colours, that's going to be a major selling point and would upsell consumers. But if they have the same exact display tech, then most will just get the iPad 10 instead. So Jay Sparrow says all he wants is a panel that's laminated, and yes, I'm completely with you, this is the biggest con of the base iPads. I would actually consider buying the base iPads if the panel was laminated, because my iPad usage is pretty basic, and so the budget iPad in every other way is perfect, apart from the panel not being laminated. And so yeah, please Apple, do resolve that with this iPad. So Evan Rogers says it's shocking if Apple does not update the OG iPads annually going forward. And yes, I'm pretty sure that Apple is going to continue giving us annual updates with this iPad because it is the most popular iPad, and so constantly refreshing this with new features is important. And yes, I know the iPad 10 was supposed to release at the September event like they usually do, but of course there's been iPad supply issues, and with a redesign I'm sure it's tougher to produce, and so this year's the exception, not the rule, so do expect the iPad 11 to release in September 2023. Sunyoxty says, I really like the current design of the iPads, aka the traditional iPad design. Apparently it's super nostalgic, and they would not mind if it doesn't get a redesign. And I'm basically in the same boat. I could care less about this getting thinner bezels. I just want Apple to give us a panel that's laminated. And so yes, I'd much rather Apple does reuse the iPad Air 3 design instead. Anyways, tell me your thoughts regarding this report in the comments. Anyways, thank you for watching guys, make sure to like and subscribe for the latest Apple news and rumours. Check out the video in the link above on details regarding the iPhone 15 series, and on that note, see ya peeps.